The rain outside fell like tears on glass, blurring the neon lights of the small town bar. Inside, the dim glow reflected on half-empty glasses and tired faces, people escaping their own stories for a night. Ethan Cole, a 37-year-old single dad, sat alone at the counter, nursing a cheap beer he didn't even like. He wasn't here to drink. He was here to forget, even just for a while. A photo of his daughter, Lily, 8 years old, smiled back at him from his wallet on the bar. He didn't notice her at first, the woman who would change everything. She sat 2 stools away, soaked from the rain, trembling slightly, her eyes red as if she'd cried for miles. Rough night? Ethan asked quietly, half smiling, the way people do when they don't want to intrude. She hesitated. Then, with a broken laugh, she said, "You could say that. I just walked away from the worst mistake of my life." By the time the clock hit midnight, her story had poured out, every word carving itself into Ethan's heart. He didn't know it then, but the woman sitting beside him that night would be on every TV screen in town the very next morning. And her story would turn his world upside down. Ethan wasn't supposed to be there that night. He hated bars, the noise, the false laughter, the smell of regret. But loneliness has a way of dragging a man out of his comfort zone. Ever since his wife, Emma, passed away 3 years ago, he'd been a man surviving on routine. Work, home, dinner with Lily, bedtime stories. Repeat. But tonight, after dropping Lily off at his sister's for a sleepover, he felt an ache he couldn't silence. So, he stopped at Murphy's, a place where stories were whispered over whiskey. That's when she came in. She didn't belong there either. Her coat was torn, her mascara smudged, and her hands shook as she clutched her bag. She ordered tea. Not beer, not wine, just tea. That caught Ethan's attention. Tea in a bar. That's a first, he said, trying to lighten the mood. She smiled faintly. Guess I needed something warm. They talked. At first about nothing. But soon, everything spilled out. Her name was Claire Donovan. She'd left her job that afternoon, walked out of a house she never wanted to enter again, and ran until the rain washed the fear off her skin. She told him she had been working as a nurse at a private clinic. But lately, things had gone wrong, deeply wrong. There were things happening there, she whispered, glancing at her tea. Things that shouldn't happen to people. Especially the ones who can't speak for themselves. Ethan frowned. What kind of things? She hesitated, eyes filling with tears. Experiments. People being tested on. Without consent. I tried to stop it, but, her voice cracked. They told me to keep quiet or they'd ruin me. Ethan listened. Really listened. It wasn't the kind of story you forget. Not when it's told by someone who's clearly running for her life. Why are you telling me all this? He asked softly. Because I think I'm being followed, she said, her voice trembling. And if something happens to me, someone needs to know the truth. Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to help her, but how? He was just a construction worker with a daughter and a broken heart. He gave her his number anyway. If you ever need a place to hide or just someone to talk to, call me. Please. She smiled for the first time that night. You're a good man, Ethan. Don't lose that. When she left, she turned at the door, looked back once, and vanished into the rain. He didn't know it then, but that would be the last time he'd ever see her alive. The next morning started like any other. Ethan woke early, made pancakes for Lily, and packed her school lunch. She ran around the kitchen laughing, her joy the only light in his otherwise gray world. He turned on the TV for background noise while washing dishes, but the voice that came from the news anchor made him freeze. Greater than, breaking news this morning. The body of a local nurse, Claire Donovan, was discovered near the old pier. Authorities suspect foul play. Donovan was reportedly preparing to expose unethical practices at a private clinic before her disappearance last night. The plate slipped from Ethan's hands, stirring on the floor. Lily ran in. Daddy, what's wrong? He couldn't answer. The screen showed Claire's photo, her gentle smile, the same one she gave him at the bar just hours ago. He sank onto a chair, gripping his head. No, not her. All day, he couldn't shake the image of her, the fear in her eyes, the conviction in her voice. She had trusted him with her story, and now she was gone. That night, After putting Lily to bed, Ethan sat alone in the dark, scrolling through news articles. And then he found it. A small detail most people would miss. The clinic she worked for, Hallstrom Biotech, had ties to a politician who was suddenly very eager to silence any investigation. It didn't feel like coincidence. He remembered Claire's last words. If something happens to me, someone needs to know the truth. Ethan stared at his phone. In his contacts, her name was still there. He clicked it. The message history was empty, except for one thing. A text she had sent that night while he was driving home. Greater than, thank you for listening. If you ever see the name, Project Resurge, don't ignore it. Ethan's heart pounded. He Googled the phrase, and what he found terrified him. Hidden forums, medical records, whispers of illegal testing on patients in comas. Claire had been right. He faced a choice. Walk away and protect his daughter, or step into the storm and honor the woman who trusted him with her truth. The next morning, he didn't go to work. Instead, he drove to the clinic. The gates were closed, guarded, but he wasn't there to confront them, not yet. He was there to see, to know, to remember. He took photos, wrote down names, and that night, he sent it all anonymously to a local journalist. It took weeks, but eventually, the truth came out. The clinic was exposed, the people responsible arrested, and Claire's name cleared of every lie they tried to pin on her. Ethan never told anyone how he knew, how one rainy night and a conversation with a stranger changed everything. But every year, on the anniversary of her death, he'd go back to that bar. Sit in the same seat. Order a tea instead of beer. Because somewhere in that quiet corner, he still felt her presence, her courage. And when Lily asked one night why he looked sad, he smiled softly and said, "Sometimes, honey, the people who cross our path for just one night can change the rest of our lives." This story reminds us that every person we meet is carrying a story, sometimes one that needs to be heard. Listening, even just once, can save more than a soul, it can change the world.